Namaste, loves, and welcome back to our Monday interview show. I am so excited to have a guest that I have been excited to talk to for a very long time on our show. It's Dr. Sue Morter, and she is the author of this new book, The Energy Codes, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. Dr. Sue is a health pioneer and practitioner. She has written other books in the past. And in this book, she talks about her healing practices combined with cutting edge science, the energy codes, which are very practical to activate untapped energy in the body, empower your hidden potential, and become one with your true essential self. Love this term, true self, which I also wrote about in my last book on Yogananda's teachings. Dr. Sue, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing some of your wisdom.
Oh, it is my great pleasure. I'm always delighted to engage in a deep and meaningful conversation, especially if it is in service to helping humanity. So we're in the right place.
And sometimes books come across my desk from publishers, and sometimes your book came across my desk from a friend who had attended your workshop recently, my friend Justin, who lives in Bali actually, and he said, "You have to read Dr. Sue's book." And I read it and I say, "Oh my gosh, our community would absolutely love to learn more about your perspective of energy and the true self." So I'm very excited for our
Oh,
conversation.
wonderful. Yay. I love
And
Bali too, so I'm glad that our referral came from Bali. That's a good
oh,
sign.
so interconnected. And so I will mention here, my loves listening or watching. The show is now also on full video. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, or if it's more convenient for you to listen while you're driving or walking your dog, of course, we always have it on Apple, Spotify. We will also link to Dr. Sue's work directly on our show notes over on myselena.com, as well as her book, as well as other articles and podcasts and guided meditations I think you would enjoy. All right. All that being said, Dr. Sue, where are we speaking to you today from? Where are you based
Oh,
today?
well, today I am in the middle of the country. I'm about 2.5 hours south of Chicago in Indianapolis. I also have a space in Los Angeles in Redondo Beach, and then in the summertime I'm in New York. So off the coast of New York on an island called Fire Island. So it's I'm spread out across the country, traveling a lot, teaching a lot, and just being all the places that I love to be. So,
And so I imagine you use your own tools, of course, to keep your energy centered when your body is traveling so much in space to go to all these different engagements.
oh, absolutely. I had some very significant awakenings about 25 years ago, and I've been embodying and teaching others to do the same, those high frequency states of consciousness for purposes of healing and awakening ever since. So I'm definitely walking the talk. I have to. Otherwise, there's no way I could keep the pace teaching the numbers of classes and courses that I do and the amounts of travel that I do as well. So definitely get to utilize the practices.
Amazing. And so let's dive right in here, Dr. Sue, all about your work and your wonderful new book, The Energy Codes. So, as you say, everything is energy, and there's things that we can't see with our physical eyes. But on the other hand, you talk about embodiment and using the body to help us awaken. How do we merge the two? How do we work with the unseen and the seen parts of us when
Hmm.
we're talking about this whole the embodiment and the totality, because we are form and unseen energy.
Yes. So the unseen and the seen are actually part of a continuum, and we are the whole continuum. So there are aspects of us that are invisible light, and there are aspects of us that are in between, and there are aspects of us that are quite visible and tangible, and that's what we reference as the physical end of the spectrum. People have a tendency to think of them as two different worlds, but they're not.
Mm,
They're a continuum. And it's very
mm.
important that we recognize that there is a connection and a continuum there, or we start contributing further to the illusion of duality and the main reason that people get stuck in changing their lives and changing their health and really having an understanding of their capacity to transform on any level in their lives. So it's the invisible world that's the real world, and the
Yes.
visible world is actually just a reflection of that invisible light that is hitting photon density and giving us the experience that we're walking around inside of a 3D movie. But there is a tremendous amount of awakening and harnessing the power of this invisible version of ourselves and get to know it so that we can truly become much more potent at healing and creating and generating the outcomes that we're looking for in this life. So,
And I like how you discuss all these different aspects of lifestyle and being, you're working with the energy, but also you talk about how important food and nutrition is. Here in our community, we talk about the cornerstones, our body and our food and our spiritual growth and emotional well-being, because as you said, it's a continuum. So we can't ignore food and just do energy work, and we can't just focus on physical exercise and diet and ignore the energy inside of us. It all is part of this totality.
yes, absolutely. We are multidimensional, and each of those things that you mention, our emotional well-being, our nutrition, our bodies, our spiritual development, are all parts of that whole continuum. The further along the continuum we go, the more into the physicality, the body, and the nutrition and the emotions are prior to that, and the spiritual component is the whole rest of the continuum. So we're definitely on the same page when it comes to speaking about what matters most, and all of it matters most. And it's just a
Mm.
matter of really learning how to masterfully work with each of those components in a way that builds a balanced and harmonious awareness of the system that we are and the capacities that we have.
Mm. And one of the things that really resonated with me in your book, Dr. Sue, was you talked about safety, right? Because we're always trying to feel safe. Sometimes we're trying to control life, or
Mm.
we don't try for things because it doesn't feel safe versus creating the safety inside. So, can you talk a little bit about true safety? And then you also use this terminology, the protective personality versus the soulful self.
Yeah, sure. So, so safety isn't a good enough goal for us. We are built for much more than safety. We're made of creativity. And so
Mm.
the creator creating isn't worried about safety. It's really focused on creating something. And so the
Mm.
more we start to learn to identify with the true self, this creative capacity, the more we are focused on the felt sensation of creating our life and bringing it forward, and we're learning to create neurosynapses and electromagnetic energy flow in the body in ways that are just allowing this flow to come
Mm.
through us and forward into our lives. If we're not identifying in that way, we start identifying as more of that which has already been created. We reference the past to determine what we
Mm.
should do next. We are focusing on what has already manifested in our lives. We're making our present and future decisions based on the past, and it has a tendency to just recreate the past and generate more and more of the same. And then we wonder why we're not healing, why things aren't changing, why we're not more abundant, and life isn't transforming. And it's basically because we're referencing something that has already been created instead of
Mhm.
learning how to identify as a creator that is here piercing through those veils and generating new ways of being and innovating new principles and philosophies that our humanity can operate by, that are more holistic and that are less based in survivorship or in survival, and more based in to the true expression of our full capacity as creators. So, so the idea of the protective personality is what happens when we are doing what I just described. I kind of reference it like this. When we land here, incarnate, when we land here, we sort of splat. We sort of hit the ground and splat. And in that splat, there's a dispersal of our resources. Our mind and our body and our breath are all going in different directions, and they're not connected and integrated any longer. And then the purpose, throughout the course of our lives, we end up pulling ourselves back together again. And by the time we're finished, we're pretty finished, right? So So what I'm doing is teaching people how to gather those resources back together again a little more rapidly so that we can live our lives in an integrated fashion.
Mm,
So what happens in that splat, just picture like if you took a big pitcher of water and poured it on a tabletop, it would splat and disperse, and then there'd be a perimeter of that outer edge of water all around on the table. Well, out on that outer perimeter of our own personal energetic splat is where we develop our realm of engaging with others. We interact, we develop ways of being, we figure out how to please the big people that are feeding
mm,
us and clothing us and all of that. And we develop a way of being that is based on the external world. It's externally
mm,
driven. And the problem with that is the longer we operate in an externally driven reality, the longer we disconnect from generating a sense of self, true self, and the more conditional our circuits become based upon what do I need to do for you to accept me? What do I need to do to belong? What do I need to do for you to approve, etc.? And and what's actually authentically trying to express as this creator never gets any attention, never gets to do its thing. So
mm,
I'm teaching people how to move back into the core center of their being rather than operating as that protective personality. So that outer perimeter is generating a personality that is based on protection. It's based on how do I fit in? How do I belong? How do I get you to approve of me? And it really has nothing to do with our true essence. It really just develops and hones our survival skills. And so a person can grow up that way, develop relationships that way, choose a career that way, live their life that way. And they get 2 or 3 or 4 decades down the road and they realize this isn't it. This is not working. I am not having a good time. This is not the bliss that I thought I signed up for. And it's exhausting. So our bodies exhaust, our adrenals exhaust, our thyroid exhausts. We become roller coastering in our emotional states, and our physiology gets extraordinarily compromised. We don't heal the way we're supposed to, and we certainly aren't in the driver's seat as far as manifesting and creating the life that we would love to be living. And so that all begins when we learn to come back into the core from this protective personality layer and live more deeply as this true, essential, soulful presence that we actually are.
mm.
And there are steps that we can take to learn to do that. That's what the energy codes are. It's a step-by-step process that allows people to begin to experience themselves as their true authentic self versus this protective layer that is the outer engaging self that we're so accustomed to.
Wow. And Dr. Sue, as you're talking, I think we can all relate to some of these tendencies, whether it's, being really reactive or being easily triggered or feeling like we're a victim to what, all this outside, relationship to the outside world. And there's a lot of discussion today around trauma. And there's, it's starting to come out, well, maybe we need something else beyond talk therapy, right? So just talking through versus actually changing our pathways and working with the body. So if you're listening to this, and if for all of us listening to this, Dr. Sue, that are saying, yeah, I have protective mechanisms and I don't know how to really shift them. They feel really deep. There's certain things that feel like a threat to my nervous system. It can be a lot to rewire. What would you say? And I know the steps go into great depth around this, but what would you say is a sort of our overarching how we use the body's energy
Hmm.
beyond just knowing that, okay, I'm acting in this protective way? How do we actually fully change the
Yeah.
programs and go into that deeper place?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So, what happens is the physical body operates at a particular vibrational frequency. It is, think of it as alpha frequency. It's sort of like the earth. It's the earth version of us, our physical body. And so, when our mind is operating not connected to the body, it operates in all sorts of ranges of vibrational frequencies, and it can get up into beta and get up into gamma frequencies where it becomes worried and paranoid and freaking out and writing stories and filling in the blanks of things that we don't understand, and that creates anxiety. If we are traumatized, it further splats us, if you will, and it disconnects the mind even more
Mm,
from the body. And the further away from the body the mind is focused, the more erratic those vibrational frequencies can be. This is, completely measurable in brainwave evaluations. And so what we're doing is teaching the people to bring their mind back onto the body and allow the body to help serve what the mind is trying to conclude by grounding it. When the mind is on the body, the mind begins to resonate more at this alpha frequency and can even go deeper into
Mm,
theta frequencies where it becomes more expansive, it becomes
mm,
more capable, it becomes wiser. There's more space between the thoughts, which allows more presence to be in the mix. And the conclusions that arrive, the gut feelings, the intuitions, and the inspirations that rise to our awareness under those conditions are more grounded. They're more holistic. They're more comprehensive than how the mind would sort through things in a fight or flight sort of fashion, looking for the best immediate solution and in a quick fix sort of way, instead of realizing that the only reason the mind is operating that way is because it's disconnected. It's not
mm,
it's not associated with the body. It's not grounded and integrated and in a holistic state. So it's operating in a survival fight or flight because it feels like it's all alone. It has to answer all the questions and figure it all out. So if the situation that someone is facing was possible to be solved by the mind alone, they would have solved it already, because the first time they thought of it, they would have come up with a solution. It would have been resolved. So if someone is continuing to have some unresolvedness happening in their lives, it is because they're asking their mind to do something that the mind actually wasn't designed to do alone. The mind and the body need to work together. The mind and the body and the breath working together brings us back all the way into this true, essential, soulful presence that is the truth of who we are. And
mm,
so we think differently. We have different ideas about what works and what doesn't. We're attracted to certain kinds of things that are more holistic. We're not interested in the quick fix or how to get out of here. We're interested in coming in here more fully with the wholeness of our being so that we can be masterful in this life versus just running afraid, trying to outrun our fears or our traumas or sweep them under the rug and not deal. We find ourselves fully capable of processing everything when mind and body and breath are working together. So in the energy codes, I'm teaching people how to do that, teaching them how to anchor themselves in the body so that their mind doesn't just go off on its own and
yes.
do that thing again that it does so well.
Well, let me ask you, Dr. Sue, because we get a lot of questions here in our community around this particular day and age. And we say that in all times there's been upheaval, but those that watch the news are saying, hey, there's germs out there and there's all these sicknesses and all these people are running around with guns. There's random shootings, there's wars, there's so much. Forget about our first personal problems, but in the collective. So a lot of
Mm.
people are experiencing fear going outside of their home or just in public spaces, or there's just a lot. How would you coach us to work with all these things that we can't control? Because it's one
Yeah.
thing to say, okay, I can work within my job or within this personal, but then what about the collective fears?
It's quite an amazing thing what happens when we begin to work with mind, body, and breath together in an anchored and embodied way. We emanate and radiate a vibrational frequency that literally attracts certain experiences to us
Mm,
and doesn't attract other experiences to us. They're a vibrational match. Everything in our life is actually what quantum science is showing us, is that we're actually projecting a movie out onto a screen, and then we're walking into that movie all the time. And what creates the movie is the energy that we're emanating, that's radiating
mm,
off of us. And so we're creating our own reality. Now, this is science. This is what quantum science is showing us is happening through the gathering of photon density by how we spend our attention. How we direct our attention will determine what gathers and what culminates and what generates itself in my immediate environment. And so when we're teaching people how to radiate and emanate, not only for internal healing, but also for the creation and manifesting of a life
mm,
that feels better, that feels comfortable, that feels empowered, and that feels organized in some semblance of a kind of a guidance, a divine guidance even shows up in people's lives where they feel like they're guided, or some people would reference it as protected. I don't really think about
Yes.
it that way for reasons that we've spoken about, but it creates our reality. So the likelihood is much less that you're going to make a decision that ends up having you in a place where something happens that is what people are staying home trying to avoid. It's all
That is a
energy.
powerful, powerful perspective, and also very empowering, Dr. Sue, because again, this is what we can focus on, is this is in our control versus all that stuff out there. It's the
Right.
out there-ness that makes us
Yeah.
feel disempowered.
Right. And that when we're disconnected that way, we read and we hear the news, or we read about something, or we hear about something occurring, we are going to have a different reaction to that than if we're connected, if we're in the core of the body and we're grounded. We hear about these things and we can actually emanate a healing energy instead of an energy of fear. We can emanate
Mm,
support. We can be available for others to help make it a better world and to leave it better than we found it. When we're not so afraid ourselves, we're actually more equipped to make a difference for others in those same moments. And interestingly, when we do that, we actually enhance our own biofield in such a way
mm.
that it's vibrating in such a frequency that makes it even less likely that something of any other frequency would occur in our immediate environment. So it's like a win-win situation when we begin learning to live this way.
That is an incredible perspective and very powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Sue, and I think that will
Yeah.
bring great comfort to many. I also love in your book how you talk about if something's not flowing in your life, it's not flowing in your body. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, a lot of us have little aches and little pains or things that show up. So that's part one of the question. I love that. And then the other, which is related, is how you talk about very specific exercises. And what I had always done, Dr. Sue, is if I feel like a pain in my shoulder, what I would do intuitively was I would sit with it and sort of feel it and sort of sit with whatever feeling felt stuck in there until it dissipated. And that would make me feel looser. So tell us how these really more specific exercises you're taking us through in the energy codes are, perhaps deeper or, different than just sort of sitting with those aches and pains that are clues that something is perhaps stagnant.
You bet. So there is energy flowing through our system that is supposed to be flowing through our system. And when that energy gets blocked up, pain is a result of that. Pain is an excess of energy in a certain area of the body. And anytime there is an excess of energy somewhere in your body, there's another area of your body that has a deficiency because it's just
Mm.
redistributing it. It's not allowing it to be harmonized and equally fluid and flowing through the whole system the way that it's designed to. So I have some images, but I'm going to show you, but I'm going to describe them for those of you that aren't watching, that are just listening. So, so here's how this happens. Energy flows from above your head, comes down through the center of your body and hits the earth. And it turns in the earth and rises back up through your body. And it comes out the top of your head. This is measurable biofield, bioenergetics. It comes out the outside of your body, circles back in, is drawn back in at the tailbone, comes up through your spine, and comes out the top of your head and recycles around the outside of your body. And it keeps recycling and recycling and recycling. And it's supposed to do that in a harmonized, balanced way, equal on the left and the right, if you will, in the front and the back, all the same. And how most people are operating is a little bit different image. The energy comes down through the body and it hits the earth and it rises back up through the body. And if we've ever shut ourselves down by saying, I don't belong here, I was too embarrassed the other day. I'll never do that again. I'll never love again because I got my heart smashed. I'll never speak up my truth again because I looked like an idiot. Whatever. What happens is we start shutting down circuits in our system. And now that rising energy that's trying to come back up from the earth up through the body so that it can cycle around and keep replenishing and rejuvenating, it's going around all these areas
Mm.
within our deep core center that we have shut down because of these experiences that we've had in our lives. And so, again, we would then make a decision based on something from the past instead of being the creator and making a new decision and going for it again. But when we have this energy routing through us in this wavering manner that has to bypass all these areas that we have shut ourselves down, it creates a wobble in that rising energy, which creates a distortion in the energy field. So now this person is on the inside of their own energy field looking out through a distortion, and they see a distorted reality. And so as
Mm,
a byproduct of that, they keep affirming and confirming that they're not safe, that it's not okay, that it's they're not in charge, that they're the victims of a world that's unpredictable, etc. And so what we're doing with the energy codes is teaching people how to build circuitry right through those areas that were shut down. And we do so by using the feeling body, the physical body, and our ability to feel what's going on in there, and to also use the body as a dashboard to kind of direct how our attention can be focused to do in a very organized fashion something similar to what you were describing that you do if you have an ache or a pain in a shoulder, and you just go in there with your conscious concentration and you just breathe and you relax, and pretty soon it starts to move that energy. Well, if someone tries that and it doesn't move the energy, there's a reason for that. And it's
mm,
because there's some other part of your body that is actually causing the excess energy to land in your shoulder. And
mm,
while you're treating the symptom by asking it to relax and being there, breathing with it, you might not be treating the cause of the shoulder tension. There might be actually something in the gut, in an organ or a gland. There could be something in another part of your system that's actually causing a diversion of the energy to offload into the shoulder and create the irritation and agitation that you're experiencing as a symptom. So we want to work at the causal level, not just chase our symptoms. We want to work at what's causing the pain in the first place. It could be an unresolved emotion. It could be a long-standing way of being that is shortchanging you in some way, that ultimately could even lead to an organ or a gland dysfunction that has referred pain to different shoulders. We know the gallbladder and the appendix both give referred pain to different areas of the body when they're in trouble. It might not hurt in directly the place of the organ or the gland, but it will refer pain to other places in the body. So to avoid all that, and without having to have a degree in anatomy and physiology for
I was
someone to
gonna
be
say,
able to
how would
do
we
this.
know the root cause?
Oh
I'm
no, what do
sitting
I
here
do?
saying, I just have a pain in my shoulder. What am I?
Yeah,
How am I supposed to know, Dr. Sue,
right,
about
right.
all this
So no worries, no
root
worries. Um,
efferent,
here,
where it's coming
here,
from?
here's what happens. The body is constantly trying to tell the mind, we're in trouble over here. Hey, you're not paying attention over here. Hey, we need more consciousness in this area. We need to bring harmonizing energy over here. And it's constantly speaking that language, and the mind doesn't listen. So it's as if the deep healer within speaks to the body, and the body speaks to the mind, and the mind doesn't listen. But the body's trying to tell the mind constantly how to heal itself, how to be self-healing, self-repairing, self-rejuvenating, self-illuminating. It's all right here inside. We just have to learn the language. So in the energy codes, I teach a very foundational principle of teaching people how to come into the central core of their body, because that's where they're going to hear, that's where they're going to feel, that's where they're going to intuit the true answers that are needed to resolve anything, any pain, any dysfunction, or anything absent in your outer life. Now, what I meant by that statement, if it's not happening in your life, it's not happening in your body, is this.
Yes.
Okay. So energy comes as the unified field compresses itself into a funnel and then compresses itself into a channel. And that's what hits the earth and rises up and cycles around. And that is the energy, the invisible version of you. That's you. You are the unified field compressing itself into a funnel, into a channel, hitting the
Mm,
earth, rising up and recycling. And you build a body inside of that recycling energy. That's how you do it. That's how you show up into the physical world from a bioenergetic standpoint. So then that energy projects out in front of you, and that's what projects your reality. So
mm,
if we have blockages inside of our system, it keeps that energy from emanating from us out into the world. So it keeps us from projecting a full blown, full Technicolor movie in front of us. There are some things missing. So,
mm.
so here's another image, and I'm going to describe this one for those of you that are driving right now. Okay, so this unified field gathers together in this funnel, which becomes a channel. It drops down and hits the earth, turns and rises up again, and recycles and recycles. And then it gets projected out in front of us, and as if it's shining a movie on a movie screen. And then we're just walking through that movie screen the whole of our lives. That's what we're doing. So if something
Mhm.
is awry inside here, disconnected, blocked, or what have you, it blocks some of the different vibrational frequencies that are emanating from us and creating our world. So if something's missing in our life, it's actually disconnected in the body that's projecting this movie of a life out in front of us. It's pretty fascinating stuff if you just kind of contemplate that for a moment. So with the energy codes, what we're doing is teaching people how to build the circuitry so that all of the energies can be projected out in front of us to manifest and to create and to heal and to really generate this life experience that we would more aptly enjoy living. I'll stop
Amazing,
there.
doctor. So, yeah, so I want to give you just to ground this in some specific examples. We have a holistic fertility and pregnancy course coming out, right? So there's meditations, there's food, there's things. Someone's unable or has had difficulty conceiving, right?
Hmm.
So that's not showing up in their life, and this is sacral, svadhisthana, all the reproductive energy. Are there
Hmm.
energy codes that can help promote fertility?
Oh, absolutely. We make kind of a loving joke about how many energy codes babies we have out there because of my years in clinic. I'd have many young women coming wanting to become pregnant, and of course, once one or two of them became pregnant after getting treated, they referred all their
Hmm.
word got out, and so it is definitely an energetic thing, whether it ends up being a chemical imbalance or any sort of tissue disharmony or whatever it is. It starts at the energetic level. Everything does.
Yes.
Every disease condition, every malfunction, every dysfunction, every overfunction, all of those imbalances are imbalances in energy to begin with. And the majority of
Yes.
those come from unresolved emotion, interestingly enough. So if someone has had a history of any kind of trauma, sexual trauma, or any sort of mothering trauma, any sort of parental, relational sorts of things, it very often can shut down the energy in this
Mm.
particular area of the body. And so this person grows up, they don't even know about this imbalance energetically. They go, they're married, they want, whatever, they want to have kids, and they find themselves unable to become pregnant in large part because of this energetic blockage that started. It can perpetuate itself into chemical hormonal imbalances. It
Mhm.
perpetuates itself into, tissue incompetency in terms of incompatibility for carrying an embryo. But all of it, we have to keep remembering, all of it goes back to the
Energy.
energy that's supposed to be flowing through that area of the body. And so if it's not, there are definitely things that we can do about that. And it comes with the foundational practices of the energy codes, where we're teaching people to anchor themselves in that central channel where each of these, I hear you say svadhisthana, and all of
The
this,
chakras.
the chakra system is aligned and connected and integrated
Mm.
through the sushumna, which is one energy center connecting to the next in this central channel flow throughout our body. So it's not enough just to address one chakra. It's about the whole system that integrates and infuses each of the chakras with each other, because a given issue in the body might um, be at the causal level, might be initiated somewhere else in
Yes.
the body, and it's showing up in the root chakra, the second chakra, etc. Even though it could be
It
a
could be
third
somewhere else.
chakra or a third
Got
eye
it.
issue. And so that's what we're teaching people to do, is to get to it at the causal level rather than just going after the symptom. So if somebody's trying to become pregnant and they can't, and they're going to go and they're going to look at their little chakra chart, and it's going to take them down to chakras 1 and 2, um, that might not be the issue. And so they might be working with those chakras and the levels of consciousness and all the energies that are associated with that. But there could be another reason that's not more serious. It doesn't have to be like some serious situation. It could just be an energy block somewhere else in that electromagnetic energetic flow called the chakra system. So with the energy code, someone becomes capable of prioritizing. They can ask the body, and the body will reveal, I
Mm.
know your symptom is here, but the cause is here. Or I know your symptom
Like
is
from
here,
your
but the cause is
from
here.
your
Yeah.
from your own intuition, Dr. Sue. So in that particular instance, any health issue or fertility, you could do these the energy codes in your book
Yes.
and realign, and then
Yes.
messages may come up from within yourself. Is that
Exactly. It becomes revealing.
mm,
It shows the mind what to do. The body tells the mind, and the mind can we can train ourselves to perceive it. And it doesn't have to be a super sensory empath type of person that can learn to do this. Everyone can learn to do this. And even if they can't feel in their bodies, because they're so used to living in their heads because of maybe trauma, or maybe just they didn't know any difference. Um, there are ways that we can direct the mind to perceive where the body is saying. So basically what we're doing is we're asking this question: where in my body could I build the circuitry that would allow my system to be able to become pregnant? And so people learn a skill set of anchoring themselves in this central channel, and then they ask these kinds of questions, and the body reveals it, sort of like muscle testing, but deep within the core of the
mm,
body. We can sense and perceive these energies on a very subtle level. But it's no different than you think of something, and uh, and then it happens, or you are thinking of someone that you haven't talked to in a long time, and for years maybe, and the next day they call you. It's like we're dialing into something that is this collaboration, this communication system that is available to all of humanity, that humanity is supposed to be operating on. But we've been raised in cultures that have been ignoring it for so long that we don't even, many people
mm,
are born into not ever even knowing that it exists. And, I'm a doctor from a clinic that was working with people for decades on how to heal themselves and how to enhance natural healing. And I've worked with people. I understand how people don't think they can do this. Like they think it's going to take something bigger than themselves to heal
mm-hmm,
themselves or to change something. And the mind has a real tendency to kind of dupe us in this way. We use it inappropriately. And so we have to train the mind to collaborate and to cooperate and to come home to its true home base, which is mind, body, and breath working together. And
mm,
once that starts to happen, the mind begins to become enhancing its capacity to perceive and to intuit and to know before we know. How
mm.
often has somebody said, been in a conversation and somebody says something to them and they're like, "Oh, I knew that. I just thought that yesterday, and but I didn't put the pieces together. And here you are saying that same thing to me." It's that. And that's not random. That's constant communication that's trying to make its way all the way up to our conscious awareness. And we shut it down and we stymie it and we sweep it under the rug, because we're so busy doing all the important things in life.
Mm.
And it ends up costing us quite a lot of peace and harmony and self-healing and
And
creative
energy.
essence. Yeah, and energy. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you that in that applying that wisdom, Dr. Sue, in another practical context, because health issues or fertility, we can say, oh, that's very physical. But as you said, if something's not flowing in your life, it's not flowing in your body. So let's talk about abundance. Let's talk about financial prosperity, right? So of course we want to take inspired action, and someone's trying to get their business off, you know, going, or there's steps that we have to take. But what would you say from an energetic level if there's year after year struggling to make ends meet, and there's just a lack showing up in life?
Absolutely the same thing. Here's what happens when we splat and we disperse and we're out there living in the protective personality. That is not the land of abundance. There is no
Okay.
way that we're going to sustain any sort of abundant emanation and radiant energy that is attracting abundance into our lives, when we are disconnected that way. So when we come back into this central core of our being and we learn how to do that through the energy codes, what we are connecting to, if you'll recall, I was talking about the unified field, which is
Yes.
everything. is funneling and channeling itself, hitting the earth, rising up, and creating this toric field flow that is abundance personified. I mean, there's nothing greater than the unified field. It's everything that exists. So we are made of that, and it's running richly through the core of our being. It's what we're made of. So it's not about tapping into it. It's about coming home to the truth of who we are, which is highly abundant. So when we learn how to come into this deep core space and to breathe life force into that space, it begins to become animated. So we're gathering ourselves back from the splat. We're landing in the abundance of mind, body, breath, which is a true reflection of the entire unified field folded into physical human body form. That's what we're made of. So, so abundance happens in our outer lives when abundance is tapped in our inner world. And keep in mind, I'm talking about working with these things on a physical level where we learn how to gather our energy back from the splat and learn how to anchor that in this body on a conscious level, and then breathe life into it on a regular basis. It starts to grow and enhance, and the next thing you know, we are living as that true essential self instead of living as that outer protective layer called the protective personality. So we're honed in on abundance. So how do we do such? It's through a series of breathwork patterns and anchoring the mind in a certain way in the system, turning on these different energy centers and the levels of consciousness that come with them. And by doing that, we start to awaken as an abundant being. Abundant beings make abundant decisions. They don't make decisions based on scarcity and lack. They don't
Mm.
make decisions based on fear, like I'm afraid if I don't do this, then this won't happen, and so I can't, so therefore I'm going to do this. That is a terrible way to make decisions about getting a business up and running or getting a relationship to work. It is very externally oriented and fear-based.
Mhm.
And so if we build a business based on fear-based decisions, we're going to have a fear-based business. And so we're always going to be afraid. We're always going to be feeding it with more fear-based,
Mm.
solutions. And that's a very lack and limited way of living. Whereas if we can come home to ourselves, and anyone can, if we can literally physically anchor our consciousness in the core of the body and allow it to enliven each of these levels of consciousness that we're made of, then what happens is we have a real sense of well-being, a sense of clarity, a sense of groundedness and confidence, a sense of abundance. And so I make abundant decisions. I pick what I
Mm.
want to pick, not what I think I should pick. I
Yes.
choose this, I decide this, I put myself out there with this intention, not so that I can get something, but so that I can celebrate the abundance that I already am. Even before the
Radiate.
financial flow is there. It's a radiant
Yes.
emanation of exactly what it is that we're seeking. We seek no more when we really land in the truth of who we are, because there's nothing lacking about any of us. We're not missing anything. There's nothing broken. There's nothing missing. There's nothing wrong. But that's the illusion that we're trying to wake up through and arrive at this space that I'm describing. So the energy codes teach people how to do that. That's exactly what we're doing is animating this deep core healer and abundant presence that we're
Mm.
actually made of, so that that can be the one that's living this life in your shoes. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's a huge, exciting shift. And so for anyone new to your work, Dr. Sue, we're hearing about these energy codes. We're like, yes, I want to live an abundant life. On a practical level, how would the everyday busy person incorporate your teachings or apply these energy codes? Are like in a day, let's just say, are these
Mm.
practices you can do for a few moments in the morning? Is it just woven into your life? Um,
Yeah, great question.
Practically speaking.
Yeah. Right. So the energy codes are made to allow you to function more effectively in real life. So they're designed to do while you're functioning in real life.
Mm.
So you don't have to carve an hour aside every day to do these things and then, cross your fingers and get up out of meditation and go into life again. Now you can do that and enhance it even more, but they literally are in real time moments. you'll learn practices where when someone comes in the room and does something that is upsetting to you, you'll learn that the reason that you're upset is due to a lack of circuits running in your system the way they're supposed to be running. And it will teach you how to build the circuits in the real time, right there while the person is still doing whatever they're doing. Or the moment that they leave, you can focus and concentrate. And in seconds, you can start to carve a pathway through the areas of your system that you have previously shut down by bringing your mind and your body and your breath together to carve a pathway for that energy to flow through instead of it flowing around. So let me give you an example. If somebody comes in the room and says something and it upsets you, it either affects you in your stomach or like in your chest or possibly in your throat. Your throat shuts down, you get a lump in your
Mm,
throat or a knot in your stomach or what have you, tension in your neck. Those moments, they each mean something different. So if it gives you a lump in your stomach or a knot in your throat, it's two different messages that the system is trying to reveal where you
mm,
are lacking the circuitry in terms of it being turned on. It's there, it's just not been turned on. And so it's trying to show you that this is where we need your attention. This is where we need this is where we need your attention. And
mm,
it's constantly revealing it. And so in the energy codes, I teach people how to come in there and anchor themselves right in the place where, oh, if it got you in the stomach, that was the energy hitting that blockage and going around it. The moment it hits it, you feel it like a knot in your stomach. If it
yes.
hits you in the throat, it's coming up past the stomach one, but it's hitting at the throat level and having to go around it. And so we experience it like, oh, it just clamps down my throat when I'm in this situation or I'm thinking about having to go do that thing next week. It's a circuitry issue. So we're teaching people how to build the electromagnetic energy pathways, energy circuits, and then the nervous system can feel and sense and perceive a greater flow through that area. So the sensory nervous system picks up
Mm,
on it, it interprets it, sends motor messages back down to that area, causing it to be more enlivened in a sustainable fashion. So that the next time that person comes in the room and does what they do, you see them doing it and it doesn't affect you because you're running on all your cylinders. You're running on all your circuits. And so you're fully equipped and fully grounded. Well, meanwhile, they're not. And you can see that they're not. And because you're not reacting to them, you can actually be present for them to help facilitate them calming down and them understanding that life is not, the emergency that they're perceiving or projecting into their movie that you're in. So, so it's a beautiful step-by-step process that allows people to, in real time, in real life, build the circuitry to be able to sustain greater presence. And when we're present and grounded and integrated, we can handle anything. It's when we're
mm.
disintegrated, when we're splatted, that we start reacting to the outer world, and then we start getting consumed with our past and our traumas, and it takes
Stressed
front
out.
stage, and it
Yeah.
runs our lives, and it doesn't need to.
So powerful, Dr. Sue. I just want one more real world example because I want people to get a sense of, what is this really like? So let's just say, Dr. Sue, and top line, because your book goes in such depth. Right now, real time, I have this kind of pressure headache. And it's been here for 2 days. And I can say, our 3-year-old, our younger son's been in the bed with us a lot. I've been hydrating a lot. But let's just say, because I want to move this energy,
Yeah.
and there's so many practices. What is, something that someone can practically do to say, hey, I've got this kind of just above my third eye, like this pressure headache right here, right now. What would I
Yeah.
do? What does it
Beautiful.
look like?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say this, that the energy codes is teaching you how to live differently in
Yes.
your body. So it's not a quick fix, let me throw a band-aid on this situation. So there's no way we can do the whole body of work justice by what I'm about to say, but I'm going to give you some
Thank
ideas.
you.
Okay.
Thank you
All right.
for that. Yes, it is
Yeah.
a way of living. It's shifting.
Yeah.
So it's more than
Yeah.
these
It
daily ailments.
Right. It's what we do in the in-between moments that determine what happens in the moments where your son's taking up too much of your sleep time and all that stuff. It's like who are you laying there that your son's going to affect or not affect? That's what I want to build in people. So it's a bigger picture that happens over, over a period of days and weeks and months, for people to really fully integrate everything that I'm describing. However, there are some immediate things that we can do. there's a practice called Mula Bandha, and you might be familiar with this if you're familiar with the chakra system. And Mula Bandha is basically contracting the musculature in the base of the pelvic bowl, the pelvic floor, the perineal muscles. So it's sort of like if you were going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly, you would contract certain muscles to do that. It's also sort of like a Kegel exercise for those of you that are
Mm.
familiar with what that is. But it's basically contracting those muscles and kind of lifting them up toward your heart, just kind of lifting them up. But it's mostly just contracting them for purposes of what we're going to do. Is remember I said that energy comes down through the head, through the whole body, hits the earth, rises back up through the body, comes out the top of the head, cycles around the outside of your body, and comes in at the base of the spine. That's the perineum. The base of the spine is the base of the pelvic bowl. That's what I'm talking about. So if you have a headache, what's happening is that energy isn't able to move out of your head and into the base of the spine. So the energy is backlogging up to your head,
Mm.
giving you a headache. So likewise, if somebody has back pain, there's a blockage above that that is keeping the energy locked in their low back. So if we want to remove that blockage, we have to go above the pain. Well, at the head, we're as high as it gets, except that where it goes from there is around the outside and in at the tailbone level. So if you squeeze those muscles at Mula Bandha, this root lock energy, those muscles that you would squeeze
Mm.
if you were having to stop the stream instantly, those muscles start to draw energy back down the spine into the low pelvic region. And it takes the pressure off of what's going on with your head.
Mm.
Now, if you take an exhale, like take an inhale, and then squeeze those muscles at the base of the pelvic floor and exhale down through those squeezed muscles into the earth, like 2 feet into the earth from wherever you're sitting, into the actual earth. And just intend it, just imagine it and intend it, and then take a breath up from the earth, back up through those squeezed muscles, right up into your belly. And then exhale right back down to the earth. And then inhale up from the earth, squeeze those muscles into your belly, breathe up into your belly. And now squeeze your shoulder blades together and roll your eyes up and exhale up through the heart, through the throat, through the center of the brain, and out the top of the head to 2 feet above your head. And then you inhale from 2 feet above your head, right in behind your eyes, right in through your throat, into your chest, into your belly, and then squeeze those muscles at the base of the spine again, and exhale right through those muscles into the earth. And if you would sit and do that for like 3 or 4 rounds, what would happen is it will offload
Mm.
this pain that's building in your head because the energy isn't able to come in at the root chakra level the way that it's supposed to. So breathing in this way opens the root chakra. Anytime we have a headache, there's a root chakra issue going
Yes.
on, which is not where people would think to go when their head hurts. You don't think about going to the opposite end of your body
Yeah.
when your head hurts. But if you understand the bioenergetics of how these energies move through the body, we can trace backward and nail it and get this to release and to be relieved. So it wouldn't take but 3 or 4
Mm.
sessions of going up and down through that channel and allowing yourself to remain anchored in the channel, but connecting it to the earth. It grounds the energy and allows it to be distributed into your whole body instead of getting
Wow.
backlogged into your head and creating that headache.
And keeping Mula Bandha the whole time, doctor?
Yeah,
Too?
you are in this situation, you're keeping Mula Bandha contracted because when you contract the muscles, it keeps your focus right at the tip of the spine. And by keeping it contracted just for the purposes of this exercise, it gathers these tiny packets of energy called photons that are the energy that I'm speaking about. So it gathers and collects more of them at the root and it draws them from your
Mm.
the headache is caused by an excess of energy in your head. So we want to draw that energy away from the head. And there are only 2 directions that it can go. It can either go below it or it can go up and out and around it. So, but we know that for either of those to be effective, we have to be drawing the energy and opening the energy flow and enhancing the energy flow of the root chakra, because the crown chakra is not able to express as freely as it could. And that's what's backlogging, giving you the headache.
It was like polarity, like pulling it that other
Yes,
direction.
yes, very much.
So, Dr. Sue, if someone is very new to energy work, in your book, this energy codes, is it self contained? I mean, I read the book and I felt empowered to say, I can take these practices, I can teach myself, I can work with my own body. I also don't have to see an energy practitioner. I mean, you can if you want to, but this is meant to, like you said, tap into our own wisdom and our own intuition.
Absolutely. I wrote it as a self-contained introductory place for people to begin. However, there are some deep, rich concepts in there, and many of the people who read it that are long-time energy practitioners are also learning tremendous things about how it all works together, how it puts together. So one of the number one things that people comment on about the book is that it's so comprehensive. It lays it
Mm,
out. And oftentimes people will say, I've been studying these kinds of things for years, and now I understand what I was learning. Now I have an understanding of it, because the purpose of the book is to truly put it all together. But I start at the level of, hey, let me break it down for you. Let's get started here in case you've never been involved, because my whole reason for wanting to do that is to put the power of healing back in people's hands. And so it is a standalone for sure to do that.
incredible. One last question, Dr. Sue, because I saw you mentioned heart math in the book, and we actually did a heart align meditation study with heart math where we found coherence go up. And
Mhm.
heart align talk or heart math talks about this electromagnetic field emanating from the heart. And one of your energy codes, deals with the heart. When you were talking about your funnel, how does that relate to the field around the with the heart?
So the toric field, it surrounds the whole body, and there's another toric field that is 5,000 times more potent that surrounds the heart center. Because the heart center
Oh,
is
so
where
it's
we
a
enter.
center within a center.
Yes, it's a center within the center. It's like a storm within a storm that
Mm,
is healing. It is the healing quality and the real truth of who we are. We actually are light compressed into form, and the very first compression that happens with high frequency light energy is a vibration is created when we compress it. That vibration is the vibrational frequency that we call love. So we're
mm,
made of love. Everything that follows after that is love, which is why it's so potent and such a magnetizing and healing quality of our system. So it's the primary come from. I speak about the breath of loving presence. We have to be breathing through this channel. Our conscious presence has to be in our core instead of on other people or our story or our past,
mm.
and it has to be loving, or it just becomes mechanistic. And we are more than machines. We are a presence of divine love, truly. And as we begin to come to know what that means through the energy codes, we begin to really enhance the love vibration in our lives, because we're opening these channels that allow the power of the power center to open to love and to fuel it with the power of 1,000 suns. It's referenced in
Mm,
terms of ancient Eastern philosophies, and that wisdom below the power center, that deep core wisdom, needs to run up through the power and connect. When we are wise and empowered and loving, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. There's nothing that can stand in the face of love. Love is, I call it the universal solvent. Nothing can handle love.
mm.
It solves everything. If it doesn't work, you just increase the dose and it works. So the power of love to heal is truly profound, truly profound.
On all levels, right, Dr. Sue?
Yeah,
Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that love, that alignment you're talking about. I'm sure with your many years of work and all your patients, you're just seeing healing on all these m- infinite levels.
exactly. And every facet of their lives, it changes when we get the energy moving and the consciousness is dialed into the frequency of love, for that energy to become loving energy moving through our bodies and through our lives. Everything changes. We just need to learn to become more masterful at that. And that's what we're doing.
Mm. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sue. This has been wonderful for sharing some of your incredible wisdom with us. And once again, Dr. Sue's book, The Energy Codes, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. We will link to it on the show notes. But also, Dr. Sue, tell us verbally, please, for those of us listening and watching, where we can find out more about your work and where we can get your wonderful book.
Oh, sure. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm out there, but it's Dr. Sue Morter, DrSueMorter.com, and we have a website that shares that. We do all sorts of coursework. I have a year-long study program that starts in the spring every year, and we have all sorts of other courses that I'm teaching practitioners and meditations, and I have a yoga class that is a school of yoga that is a yoga teacher training as well, that teaches people how to anchor in the core of the body and build these circuits while we're in yoga asanas. And
Mm.
I also take people to sacred sites around the world, to really do these practices in these sites, sacred sites that have such a flourishing energy there to support what we're remembering. So there's something for everyone. I have lots of free things that I do, and also deep dive if one is interested. So,
Oh, I'm interested really quick, Doctor. So what are some of those sacred sites? Which ones?
well, we go to Egypt, we go to North and Southern India, we
Mm.
go to Machu Picchu, we go to sacred Greece, sacred Ireland. We've been to Easter Island and the Atacama Desert in Chile, and
Wow.
that's to name a few. And the south of France. We've been going to the south of France the last 2 years. We're going to Egypt again this year, and south of France for a Mary Magdalene tour to celebrate
Whoa.
the divine feminine and bring that information forward. So, very excited about that.
Wow. I got goosebumps. That sounds
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Dr.
yeah.
Sue. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be back here, as always, Thursday for our next Q&A show. Till then, check out the show notes, mysaluna.com. Check out more about Dr. Sue's amazing book and her work. Until then, sending you much love and see you back here soon.
Beautiful.
Go.